Okay. Hello everyone, I'm Tom Clarke, Head of Common Platform at ITV. The Common Platform is our next generation hosting platform, and this is the story. But first, a little bit of context which will help through the rest of the talk. This is ITV. It's split into 5 divisions. We've got studios who make stuff, so that's things like Jeremy Kyle, and we also produce stuff like University Challenge for BBC. There we go, thank you, BBC. Commercial who sell stuff. Broadcast who distribute stuff over the air. Online who distribute stuff online is where the ITV Hub lives. And finally, shared services who do everything else like HR, legal, finance. That's where technology lives as well. So that's some useful context as well. I'll come on to more of it later. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the journey of the Common Platform. So let's wind back to 2010. ITV's share price was down to 8p a share. The company was about to go bust. Adam Crozier kind of came in, kind of saved the day. One of the things he did was actually to outsource all of our infrastructure to a managed service provider. So it wasn't too bad, like VMs in weeks, but that wasn't so bad because most of ITV was waterfall and you could put it onto a Gantt chart and it'd be okay. And admittedly, the VM installs, they were scripted, as in a paper script that the team in Bangalore actually followed to build the server. And it was still dev and ops dev team. They'd throw it over the fence to an ops team, and they would never meet unless something went horribly wrong and you'd call them in to save the day. In the team I was in operations, we added Puppet to take these servers that were delivered by the managed service provider and make them a bit better. So, uninstalling X Windows from your server, disabling the R-Star services on your server in 2015. And then we took it from there and we thought, well, we can configure applications with this. So we started configuring the applications. We added CI, it was Hudson, then Jenkins. And then we added monitoring. We stopped crowdsourcing our monitoring from Twitter, and we actually did some proper stuff. It works, and it's cheap. So fast forward to 2014. So we were trying to put the ITV player on Samsung TVs. And there's a guy called Rob Taylor, and he's a pioneer in the Wardley sector. So Simon Wardley talks about pioneers, settlers, and town planners. Rob Taylor's a pioneer, and he said, let's do this with a DevOps team, and let's do an MVP, and let's kind of get a whole team together, rather than Dev and Ops, put them all together and make something. So he got some platform engineers, and he got some QA people, and some front-end devs, and back-end devs. They put them together. They requested some VMs. They waited. And they waited. They waited. And there's some people who actually won this project in the audience. And they waited. And essentially, they went rogue. They got their credit card, they went to AWS, and within less than 6 weeks, they'd produced the entire platform on AWS just in time for the VMs to arrive.
And still the consequences.
Yeah. So I get told off when I say it's quite as gung-ho as that, but it wasn't far from the truth. So it showed that to ITV that DevOps, horrible term, sorry for using it, but it works there, product teams, putting everyone together who's smart to build something, could work. And it showed that the cloud could work as well. So they're like, okay, that's quite cool. So fast forward to 2015. That kind of project had gone pretty well, they were kind of thought it was quite good, but all of our modernisation, but all of our systems we ran at ITV have been put on ice since the outsourcing thing. 2015, they're like, shit, we're falling behind. All our competitors are getting ahead because we're not updating our systems. We need to modernise them. We need a modernisation program. And they looked at the on-prem stuff like, nah. And they looked at the cloud stuff and they're like, yeah. So they asked me to make it a thing. So I took Rob's work. So he's a pioneer. Now I'm a settler in the Wardley sector. I come in after the pioneer. I take the great idea and I industrialise it and I make it fit for the whole of ITV. So that's great. I like that idea. So fast forward again, there's lots of fast forwarding to today. It's now a thing. So there's 12 instances of the Common Platform, and I'll come on to what I mean by instance later. Our team's grown from about 4 to 13 now, and this is going to be the story about how I did it. And it's not purely technical, it is people, process, and technology. So if you don't like people and you don't like process, 2/3 of this, So fast forward, we're a FTSE 100. What are we always being asked to do? More with less. We answer the our shareholders, we answer Adam Crozier, and we are there to be very lean and not spend as much money as we possibly can. So how do we do that? So automation. It's an obvious one for DevOps. We all, people who do what we do, we like to automate boring, repetitive stuff so we can concentrate on the cool, interesting stuff. And I figure the more you automate, the more time you have. So you have more time to automate, so you can automate more, and you get into an infinite loop. So automation is a really, really obvious one to everyone in this room. Next one, standardization. Really exciting words I'm talking about here. So if everything looks the same, and everyone's sharing the same stuff, this guy over here, or girl, makes an improvement, all these people benefit. It goes up. This guy makes improvement. They all benefit. It's the law of accelerating returns. A rising tide lifts all boat. The other thing as well, being able to make assumptions safely is incredibly powerful. Rather than having to go to, I'm not sure, and having to go right down to the bottom to check that it's not going to screw you up. If you can trust and assume through standardization that that's going to behave a certain way, because it looks like that there, and it looks like that there, it means you can move more quickly. It also means that when you're working in one of these teams, you can look at someone else's project and steal their stuff, because you know it's standardized and you know it's compatible, and you can actually just steal stuff. It's fantastic. So standardization, loosely coupled, highly aligned, is kind of, I think, the latest buzzword now, but it's really important. So we standardize everything, but you don't want to make a change here that forces everyone in the whole of the company, 4,000 people, to suddenly make a change, to down tools and make a change. So how do you have that kind of loosely coupled, so you can change independently, but highly aligned, all heading in the same direction? That's one of the main terms we use. Blast radius reduction. This is kind of one of my favourite terms. So blast radius is a term we use at ITV to talk about the area of effect of something going catastrophically wrong. And we're always trying to limit it. The idea is that you must have think back at ITV, there must have been a time when there's loads of shared infrastructure and something went horribly catastrophically wrong. And someone went, I know, more process. And they put in a cab, they put in a change approval board. So for the longest time at ITV, you'd have to go up to the cab, please sir, may I do a release? Then yes, you may do a release. So thank you. You're back out of the cab, so grateful that you had a release window of now to do a release. But if you can actually isolate stuff, if you can limit stuff, and you can say, even if it goes horribly wrong, it can only affect this thing, then a lot of people higher up in the business go, well, I don't really care about your thing that much, as long as it doesn't hurt anything else. So it means you can push that responsibility down, you can devolve it. And if you're the product manager of something and you've got a responsibility for availability and you want to do a release on a Friday, that's your call, because that's your responsibility and it empowers you. It means you can also say, I don't care for a lot of stuff. That's someone else's problem, even if they explode, it's not going to hurt me, and it's great. So blast radius reduction. You build it, you run it. This is all kind of really obvious stuff to everyone in the room, but to ITV or FTSE 100, giving people responsibility, they'll want to make it work. It's quality through psychology rather than process. Rather than saying, make it good, it's like, you want to make it good. It's your sense of pride, your sense of hubris. If you're looking at the error rates in production, and you've written that code, and it's got a 10% error rate, you're going to feel bad. And if you don't feel bad, you should leave. So you give them that. And all of our modernisation projects have actually gone this product team approach. Rather than having this function throwing some crap over this function, they're now platform engineers, they're now front-end developers, back-end developers, it's all as a unit now with full responsibility. We've devolved it down, and it's incredibly empowering for the people at ITV. So I'm going to talk about how we take some of those kind of things I just mentioned, and we apply them to the classic people, process, and technology. So straight on with technology. So Puppet. Winding back into the past, when we first adopted, we had a single repo, Linux Puppet, it was called in GitHub, and everyone was in there. This team, that team, whichever they were there. Tiny change here, blew out days worth of kind of development team on this side, because it was really tightly coupled. So how do we fix that? We switched it around, and now GitHub has gone like that, but we now have one infra repo per product. And in that infra repo, we have our Terraform config, we have our Puppet config, we have some documentation for the system. But again, a blast radius thing, because that repo is only related to that product, the signal to noise ratio is through the roof, because the only stuff in there is stuff you care about. So if you put a link into it to send an email to when it does a commit, you know the quality of that email is going to be high because it's something you care about. And the same with Slack as well. You either having to parse all the commits that come in through, I don't care about that, don't care about that. You know it's really, really high quality, high signal, so it's great. So we also adopted roles and profiles, so it's kind of a really, really good pattern. So our profiles that we share around ITV, they have an individual repo each, and we treat our internal modules just like we treat our external modules. So they're semantically versioned, they have a change log, everything's managed for pull request, and they all have an individual repo. So we are loosely coupled, highly aligned. You can run whatever version you want, as long as you kind of keep up, because it's silly not to. And we just all do it through a Puppet file, standard kind of stuff. So Terraform. So we were really early adopters of Terraform. So we adopted it probably this time last year. Stefan on my team recommended we have a look. So we took Terraform and we expressed what we do at ITV, the ITV business logic with Terraform modules. And we quickly realized actually the Puppet approach of having a Terraform module into a repo, that made sense as well. So we did that, we split everything down, separate repos for all our different modules. And I was looking at it and I was thinking, the Terraform approach of having like remote modules in your code, like the Goism or Terraformism of remote stuff in your code seemed a bit weird to me. Lots of things you had to change, and having your Terraform stuff caring about where stuff was pulled down from, that seemed a bit weird as well. So I was pondering this, and I mentioned to Astathios on my team that it'd be cool if there'd be a file that you could just list all the modules, and it would pull them down into the local repo, and then all of your modules would just go // that path. I mentioned that just like casually over lunch. The next day, he'd come in, and he'd created that. He'd created TerraFile. So now, in the root of all of our info repos is a TerraFile which just lists all the modules and what versions they've got. So loads of benefits. It means that you can look into a module for a project and say, I know what versions you're using, and it means you've got one place to change stuff. So we did that, and then Ben on my team, he took that, refined it, and actually turned it into a Ruby gem, polished it up, and acted this great blog post, which is linked at the end, talking about how we use TerraFile at ITV. But everyone's using it now. So it's a perfect example of, you may have loads and loads of individual repos to pull in, which is a real hassle, unless you put tooling around it to actually make it really easy, and then everyone does it, because people are lazy, and you can steal this and use it. So we apply these same stuff to Amazon, and also so standardization. We have a common vocabulary at ITV. So we talk about products, we talk about ecosystems, we talk about environments. So environments, everyone's probably familiar with. We use the term ecosystem to describe a collection of environments. So your prod ecosystem, your prod ecosystem contains your production environment. Your dev ecosystem contains all of your development environments. So maybe stage, SIT, QA, all of those. They're all collected as that. And we use these terms interchangeably. We know what they mean. So when you're having a conversation, they don't need to kind of look up what you mean. It's standard terminology at ITV. And we also use these to apply config. So you'll say, does it apply to the product level? Does it apply at the ecosystem level? Does it apply at the environment level? And it's actually reduced a whole load of duplication. So a lot of the config that applies like to stage, to SIT, to prod, or whatever, it makes more sense at the ecosystem level. So we talk about kind of blast radius reduction. So we have our dev and our prod ecosystems, and we represent those with accounts in Amazon. So we have a prod account and a dev account in Amazon. And this has loads of benefits. So obviously it's the blast radius reduction. Massive failure in dev can't possibly affect your AWS account in prod because they are really separated. And it's got loads of other benefits as well from billing. So it's very clear how much the development account for a particular product costs, because it's all linked into a consolidated billing account. It's great for security, because IAM obviously applies unless you do like kind of inter-account trust. It applies just per account, so it's great for that as well. And API rate limiting, that applies per account. So dev goes root 53 crazy, you know that your production account is going to be safe. And finally, billing. So we apply business level billing to our production account, and dev level billing to our dev account. So it allows us to kind of like segregate our billing out as well. So we actually isolate our services per account as well. So we've got Sensu for operational monitoring, Elk, Grafana, Console for service discovery, Jenkins for orchestration and deployment. But again, we actually have those in our infra VPCs attached to each account. So actually, if you zoom down here, in prod, we've just got a single application VPC. And as a side effect of the blast radius stuff, if you see an alert coming from this Sensu, because it's isolated per ecosystem, per product, signal to noise ratio is really good. Because it's come from there, it has to be important because it's from production. These ones here, rather than actually having them duplicated per environment, you do them at the ecosystem level. And it actually means if you're someone who only cares about, say, on-call support for this, you can actually ignore everything from this side because you know it's dev for this product, you know you don't need to care, and it means you can think more quickly rather than having to have a look through and parse in where you let your brain do, you get the system do the hard work. So yeah, so then we have kind of SIT environments, staging environments, and they all kind of sync up to that, and it's really good. And then we have applications. That's the bit I don't care about, applications. So we talk about multiple instances before. That pattern that I mentioned before, we employ that across the whole of ITV. So we've kind of got our .com system. We've got all these different. This is the one that pays Ant Dec. This is the one that kind of gets content out to Ericsson. Oh my God, it's exploded. It doesn't matter. Because it's isolated in that account, it can't possibly hurt anyone else, at least at the platform level. Obviously, at the application level, if there's a dependency, you need to worry about that. But from a platform level, it is isolated. So these are some of the kind of systems we've got, but it's the same pattern applied elsewhere. So it's loosely coupled highly aligned. So the technology I just mentioned would be absolutely useless without fantastic people to run it. So small number of brilliant people versus literally hundreds at the managed service provider. That's critical. It's the whole two pizza thing. Really, really small number of people, but brilliant people. And really, I hire two qualities. So smart and kind. I say smart is the ability to adapt to change, because the technology we use today won't be the technology we use tomorrow, and you've got to be pretty smart to keep up. And then kind, I say, is the ability to fit into the team. We all need to get along, so essentially don't be a dick. So I also think as well, you give people a chance and they'll probably surprise you. So we like to throw people into the deep end with water wings and a lifeguard, but really kind of push them. A perfect example is a guy called Cameron on my team. So he's a young lad, like early 20s from New Zealand, only been working for 18 months. Responded to a Hacker News post that I did and said, hey Tom, I'm really interested in kind of going to work for ITV. Looked at his CV, obviously a bright guy, 18 months experience, I'm sure we have the capacity to bring up a junior. But we had a Skype and he was really, really smart. Oh, okay. He came over anyway, not just for us, but he came over on his youth mobility visa. And we had a coffee. I'm like, this guy's really smart. I'm not sure we've got the capacity to bring up a junior, but what I'll do, I'll put you in front of the team and we'll see what we think. We brought him in, 18 months experience, and actually a lot of it on Windows, and he smashed it out of the park, did a brilliant job. And we actually did our standard web architecture whiteboarding session, and with a bit of kind of coaching, he actually came up with a brilliant architecture. And he invented sticky load balancing from first principles. Like, he'd never come across it before, but actually in the interview, he invented sticky load balancing. So, smart and kind, the two qualities. Anything else I can teach you?
What if they're mutually exclusive?
Oh, that's important. Like, don't hire brilliant jerks. Like, we haven't got time for that. You know, if on the team, I've interviewed people with, massive IQs, off the scale IQs. I've got time for them because they need to fit in the team, they need to kind of get along, and all of my team kind of exhibit those qualities. And I have passed on people who are, off the chart IQ because they're not going to fit in the team, and we just need to get along. So we've got these smart and kind people. What do we do with them? So there's a guy called Daniel Pink talks about the theory of motivation: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So autonomy is basically the freedom to make your own decisions. So you've just spent all this money and time hiring smart people. Let them be smart people. I mean, it's pretty obvious. Mastery is the opportunity to become brilliant at something through training and practice. Internal training, external training, and being surrounded by smart people makes you brilliant. You want to be good. You push each other. You force each other on. Purpose. Believing that what we do actually matters. Now, I'll be honest, I don't think Coronation Street has ever saved a life. Maybe. But it does entertain them. And that's the next best thing as far as I'm concerned. And I really believe that. I'm wearing a t-shirt. So there are two sets of ITV engineers at ITV. We've got our embedded or platform engineers, and we've got our core team, who I'll come on to later. So useful stuff, if you remembered it from the start, the 5 divisions of ITV, some with some terrible colours. We've got there was a time back in the day when there was this central resource, everyone was contending, all the technology directors were fighting for everyone, and it was an absolute bun fight. So now we've pushed that responsibility down. It's kind of a blast radius thing again. We've put at least one platform engineer in every division, and it's up to that technology director to decide what they do with them. So actually their day-to-day job, even though they report to me, is kind of actually decided by that division what product they want to work on. And these engineers, they are the owners of that instance of the platform. So it's their responsibility. They're generally the first responders to stuff going wrong, but they generally act as force multipliers on a team. They're the ones looking at how they can make it more efficient, how they can make the development team even more effective. It's like, hey, I can parallelize this in more instances to reduce the test running time by 10 times. Like, that's great. You just made the team 10 times more effective. Brilliant. And it's also influencing operational quality from the very start. So rather than at the very, very end, like it used to be with dev and ops, like, oh shit, if you'd done all this stuff, it would have been way better. Well, the project's closed now, you're going to have to live with it for the next 5 years. Now, from the very beginning, like, oh, maybe we should do this and that. You get high quality stuff. So the core team, so I mentioned these instances, the platform engineers. The core team are responsible for the concept of the common platform itself. So it's the common Puppet modules I mentioned, it's the common Terraform modules I mentioned, it's the tooling, it's the best practice. And what they build is basically, it's complete, its batteries are included. You can take these toolkit components, put them together, and you'll actually have all that AWS stuff, you'll have Elk, you'll have Consul, you'll have Sensu up and running within half a day of setting up. So you can get really quickly started with a totally standard interface. So they also do heavy R&D. So it used to be that R&D on new cool stuff was done in a product or project timeline. So you say, how long is this R&D going to take? Well, maybe a week, maybe 2, maybe 4. And the project managers would go, because they just couldn't understand that. So the heavy R&D we kind of put into the core team, but they're not dictators. It's not an ivory tower. They're basically the custodians of all these modules. Basically what they do is take PRs from everyone, assess them, and merge them in. And they also look around ITV for best practice and steal it and polish it up, genericize it, and share it back out again. They have that centre of excellence right in the middle. So winding back into the old day, 4 different teams, all this great stuff is the common, boring, repetitive stuff. It's the logging, it's the alerting, it's the deployment pipelines, it's kind of the BAU bread and butter, but invented differently for each team. Triangular wheels, square wheels, pentagonal wheels, yeah, let's do it. So what we did, we had a core team. The core team take responsibility for all that grey stuff. They make a perfect round wheel, do the stuff once and do it brilliantly, and they share it out amongst all the other ones. And look, they've got more time to do cool business value stuff. Adam Crozier loves business value. So they share it out, and it means they're more focused to work on their particular business areas. They're not distracted, they're not context switching. It also means that teams can feed in and update the whole platform. So the security team will say, there's a new CIS benchmark you should really comply with. They feed that requirement into the core team. They update the Puppet modules, they update the Terraform modules, they update the best practice. They feed it out into all the platform engineers embedded in the divisions. And they all upgrade. So, I just said upgrade. How do you upgrade a platform? Process. Hey! So this may might want to sleep, this is really exciting, it's my favourite bit. So, underpinning the whole of the common platform at IT is specification, the common platform specification. So, it's a version standard, it defines the platform. It's Semver again, it's hosted in the GitHub repo, and eventually we're going to release it every month. Admittedly we're still in beta, it's actually on version 0.1 at the moment. It's essentially the owner's manual for the platform. At the very, very top is the charter, it's the high level goal. It's why are we even doing this in the first place? So things like quality, doing the right thing once rather than the wrong thing twice. Simplicity, saying it should be as simple as possible but no more. Value, as small as possible, as large as necessary. Security, it's got Ant Dec's address and bank account details in the system. It better be secure, because otherwise they get really angry. So we go down, we go into policies, and this is basically common sense written down. The problem with common sense is it's not that common, but this is the must nots, the shoulds, the should nots. So stuff like, platform components must be managed for a configuration management tool. I mean, it's really obvious stuff, but unless you write it down and say, there it is, people may not do it. And notice it doesn't mention Puppet, it doesn't mention Chef. It's implementation detail agnostic. It's actually a layer above that. It doesn't care about that. Drilling down, you get into those standards, practices, and principles. This is like the day-to-day stuff. This is where we define what an ecosystem, how AWS should look, what the DNS hierarchy looks like, and alerting standards. So my development server just sneezed at 2 AM. Should I page the on-call? No. But we say that in that doc. Every alert that interrupts someone must be urgent, important, and actionable. So it meets none of those criteria. But ITV Hub is down at prime time. Urgent, yeah. Important, yeah. Actionable, most likely. As I said, my team are the first responders for most things that go wrong on the platform. And then this stuff, component design and implementation, is not even part of the spec. The spec says, write clean code, add clear comments, get peer reviewed. That's good enough. You've hired smart people. They don't need chapter and verse. They just need kind of good stuff to work with. Just believe the person who's maintaining it afterwards knows where you live and has a chainsaw. I used to be a Perl developer, so you'll understand what happens. I mean, this is an example of one of our Puppet modules, Profile Bastion. It sets up a Bastion host in AWS. Nicely indented, commented, sensible parameter names, same defaults, easily overridden. Lots of kind of like clean stuff there. I'm sure there's an NDA I should get you to sign before showing this. This is an example of our Terraform configuration. Same thing again. Good comments, clean stuff, clean parameters. And it's all very logically laid out in the file system. So it's just good, clean stuff, nicely laid out. So it's been a whistle-stop tour. I've taken you through the people, the process, the technology at ITV. But we're still on a journey. And if you're one of those kind of smart and kind people and you're interested in working with some of the stuff I just mentioned, please come and have a chat with me afterwards. I'll be happy to kind of talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Who's got a question for Tom? Anyone? Well, you're going to make me run around the room tonight, aren't you?
Be gentle.
Oh yeah, I know. Hi. Did you mention like pricing? You've got different environments like your production, dev, integration and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So do you use any kind of tools or just the default billing tool on AWS?
Yeah, so right now, I'll be honest, we've kind of gone straight in with the actual getting it done rather than doing it efficiently. But we're about to basically do our eyes for all the production stuff and shutting down the dev stuff overnight. So if you're running dev like 24/7 to 100%, just doing it like on a 9 to 5 brings you down to just like 28% utilization. So massive cost saving. And we've got one team that's like pioneered that, and we're going to steal what they've done and give it to everyone else. And what he did with that showed loads of bugs in their code, so it's really, really good stuff.
That's good.
Thanks. Next. Okay, here, you're nearest.
What is the reason why you're using Grafana and Logstash instead of using CloudWatch?
So the reason for that is, historically we used to want to be totally platform agnostic, so we wanted to avoid vendor lock-in. I think it's probably a bit naive, the decision about a year ago, but we wanted to do our own tooling just in case we wanted to move away from AWS. So a lot of the stuff we've got now is a result of that decision, but we are always looking to kind of see if we can kind of change stuff up. But it's basically a vendor lock-in avoidance.
Sorry, guys at the back. I know you were desperate for some more alcoholic, non-alcoholic beer. Just wait a couple of minutes to the questions because we're coming in. Shush. Mr. Lolly.
You wrote an add-on for Terraform in Ruby? What?
No, so, well, yeah, so it's... So I mean, it wasn't a direct add-on directly into Terraform. It does stuff for Terraform on behalf of Terraform, but they are, you know,
You're wiggling.
I know I'm wiggling, but they're loosely coupled. There we go.
Simple question, you. This time. No 4-part questions.
Alright, I've had two, I'll just do the simple one apparently. You said that you had prod and basically split up into 2 different accounts.
Correct.
I like that. But you had the diagram Jenkins.
Yeah.
Can you explain what it's doing in the prod side?
So that, in terms of actually like pipeline deployment, that's actually up to the development teams to take. So we give them those bits. Some people have done it so that committing to GitHub will make a certain release that is marked as stable, and then Jenkins will be looking at GitHub to see that, and it's almost like the baton gets passed across, and that Jenkins wakes up based upon a release being made that's been almost like signed by the pre-production environments. So it's kind of like a handover. It's kind of keeping the separation where possible, but actually doing the integration where necessary.
Okay, a couple more questions. I'll just walk around this side.
How do you manage secrets and passwords?
Very well. Mostly in higher YAML. Doing kind of the moment we've been working so far. There's always like that first initial secret thing, how you manage that, get it onto the machine. We're looking at Vault. We think that's probably kind of the best way. But yeah, so I think Vault's probably done the direction of travel, but YAML's been absolutely fine.
One more? Anyone else got a question?
Sure.
Last one, sir.
You mentioned that like some products like have dependencies to other products. Are you just like pairing VPCs with that, or are you doing like, is there some kind of...
Yeah, so at the moment we've been treating them as totally kind of isolated units, so everything comes in through the front door. We have like direct connect back onto our on-premise network, and so far it's been kind of going via that route as well. Depending on the traffic, we might look at peering between VPCs, but I do like that everything is an individual unit, and we don't get this kind of all special exception made. I think, you know, aggressively reduce variance, and if you can avoid having an exception made for something when you can, that's the ultimate preference. It's been okay so far.
Cool, excellent. Thank you very much, Tom.
Thank you.